Hi, I'm Bill Houghton, the founder of Sensible Surrogacy, and today we're going to be talking about surrogacy in the Ukraine, the costs, the benefits, and even the disadvantages of surrogacy in Ukraine. So you probably learned about gestational surrogacy from watching television or the media. Maybe you've seen Kim Kardashian online with her surrogate. Maybe you've read about Elton John or Ricky Martin and their surrogate children. And you may think that California or the United States is really the place to have your surrogacy program. Well, the truth is that there are a lot of destinations worldwide that are performing surrogacy, and many of them are very, very safe, have strong legal frameworks that support surrogacy, and are far more affordable than what you'd find in the US. And the first option there is really the Ukraine, which has become an international hub outside of the US. What makes Ukraine so special is that it is one of the few destinations worldwide that actually has legislation supporting your surrogacy contract. And not just altruistic surrogacy, but commercial surrogacy as well, which means it's completely legal to go out and pay your surrogate a decent wage, find a professional service that will manage her and manage your entire program for you, as well as all of the sort of surrounding commercial activities that take place during a surrogacy program. So some fun facts about Ukraine. It is a European country. It is far to the east in Europe, just bordering on Russia. It is actually the largest European country, and Kiev, the capital, is the 8th largest European city. It's got a stable democracy. The people are all European descent, generally, Christian, and they have national health care, which is really important. Not only do they have a great legal framework for surrogacy, but medical care there is very, very reasonable. What makes Ukraine so special? Well, it's the legal framework that's in place, and it is not just the fact that people are going there to be doing surrogacy. There's actually laws in place to support surrogacy, and essentially what the laws say are that commercial agreements, commercial contracts are supported, and when a baby is born under the terms of a commercial contract, the intended parents are the legal parents from the moment of conception, right? That actually makes Ukraine more legally secure than even California. In California, the baby is not really the intended parents until there's a court order sometime in the second or third trimester, what they would call a pre-birth order. But in Ukraine, under the laws, the parents, the intended parents, are the legal parents from the very moment of conception, right? That makes Ukraine very, very legally safe, and it makes it quite unique in terms of legal destinations worldwide. Now, there are some pros, obviously, to a legal destination. You, as a parent, would be completely protected. Your names go on the birth certificate. The surrogate has no rights whatsoever in terms of trying to make claims to the baby. It's very, very supported. And if you run into any problems, you have the contract, which is enforceable by law. There are, however, some cons, right? And there are some things that you should know about when doing a program in Ukraine. First of all is regulations are sort of a two-way street, right? They protect you, but they also create some bureaucracy. So in order to do a program in Ukraine, you need to be able to demonstrate, one, that you're legally married. You need to be a heterosexual, legally married couple, and you need to provide a copy of your marriage certificate. You also need to provide a doctor's letter that shows that you are unable to carry a pregnancy yourself, right? There's a general requirement by the laws in Ukraine that only people who are medically unable to carry a pregnancy can pursue surrogacy there. You also, and this is an important part, when the baby is born, unlike other countries like Canada or the United States, the baby is not eligible for Ukrainian citizenship. So, if you're an American, that's not a problem because you can always apply for American citizenship. But there are some countries, like Italy, for example, that are not surrogacy friendly, and they would be not disposed, let's say, to granting their own citizenship, Italian citizenship in that case, to the baby, in which case, if you were in the United States, you'd apply for American citizenship and come home. Not possible in Ukraine. So there are some countries worldwide that are not surrogacy friendly, that are not really a good destination for Ukraine because you can't get a local passport. So how much will your surrogacy program cost you in Ukraine? It's actually very, very affordable. Typical program in Ukraine is going to run about 50,000 US dollars. Now that compares to a US program, which is going to be about $150,000. And the cheapest program in the US is going to be close to 100. But in general, the US is going to be 2 to 3 times more expensive than what the Ukraine is. There are guarantee programs, right? Because the Ukrainians have been doing this since 2009, there is a mature market that's cropped up. So there are sort of unique marketing opportunities, including guarantee birth programs, which are quite common and typically run about $60,000. Now, a guarantee program in Ukraine basically means that the clinic will continue to do IVF cycles and embryo transfers until you have a baby. Until you have a healthy baby in your arms, the clinic will just not stop providing services, right? That's quite a benefit for a lot of couples, especially couples who have a problem in trust in clinics, especially clinics overseas. These guarantee programs go a long way in sort of mediating that trust. In terms of why is Ukraine so much less expensive? Well, the reason is simple. The cost of living in Ukraine is about 1/3 of what the cost of living is in the United States. So the surrogate, she's making about $15,000 for her salary in Ukraine. Compare that to the cost of living in, say, Los Angeles, which is 300% higher. That $15,000 has the spending power of $45,000. So in fact, the surrogate in Kiev, who's making $15,000, is making more in real terms than a surrogate in the United States, right? But because of the cost of living, her basic salary is much lower, especially if you're an American coming from overseas. The other reason why Ukraine is so much more affordable is that clinic costs are much lower and medical costs are much lower, especially in the United States. Americans like to think that the US medical care system is the best in the world. And it's true that the best US clinics are probably the best in the world. But in general, the American medical care system is a mess and it's expensive. And if you're accustomed to paying American prices for medical care, then going overseas to a place like Ukraine is going to seem dirt cheap, even though the medical care is still excellent. Medical care, as rated by the WHO in Ukraine, is basically at European level. So you can feel as good about going to Kiev and having a medical procedure as if you were going to, say, London or Madrid. Medical care is excellent and it's free. In order to have a baby in Ukraine, you basically don't have to pay anything. Whereas if you were to have a baby in the United States, you would likely have to pay about $5,000 to $10,000 out of pocket. And that's if you had insurance, right? But everybody in Ukraine is covered under national medical care. And so having your baby there is basically free. So what to look for when you go to Ukraine? Like I said, because this is sort of a mature market that's been doing this since 2009, they have really got the business down pat, and they offer a lot of special services that you can look at and sort of negotiate. Some programs that you find are going to be higher in cost, some are going to be lower in cost, but they offer different services. And what you want to look for are packages that include medical services and extra medical services, like the guarantee program, which has an unlimited number of IVF cycles and embryo transfers. You want to make sure that your embryo and your sperm freezing, your egg freezing is all included, as well as medications are going to be included. And any translations of documents, medical documents, are going to be included in that as well. Those are all the medical costs, but there's also personal costs that you want to have included in your agreement, right, in your package in Ukraine. And these are things like having a driver coming to pick you up at the airport and take you around. When the baby is born, you want to have all of the necessary baby items, right? You want to have bottles and diapers and onesies and blankets and things that if you haven't had a baby, you probably aren't thinking about, but as a father myself, these are things that are critical. And when you get ready to travel overseas, you start making checklists of these things, right? But a good program will have these things ready for you when you come to Ukraine and check into your apartment. Also, you want to look for a program that includes a nanny, right? Especially if you're a new parent. You want to have a nanny who can come in and give you basic childcare lessons. How do you bathe? How do you burp? How do you feed your baby? These are all things that a good program can provide for you, as well as pediatric visits. Now, if you are an American or you're from Europe and you're going to be applying for your citizenship in Ukraine, you're probably going to be there for 3 to 4 weeks. And those are 3 to 4 critical weeks. And you want to make sure that you can have a pediatrician come and check in on the baby during that time. And a good program will provide a pediatrician to come actually to your apartment, so you don't have to travel through the city with the baby and in order to have some basic checkups. So that is a summary of surrogacy in Ukraine. As always, if you have more questions, I invite you to come to our website, sensiblesurrogacy.com, and visit the Surrogacy Guide. It is a searchable database of hundreds of articles covering all aspects of your surrogacy journey. You can get more specific information about Ukraine at sensiblesurrogacy.com/surrogacy in Ukraine. And of course, you can always send us an email and talk to one of our consultants at info@sensiblesurrogacy.com. I really hope this has been helpful. You can look for some of our other videos that are coming up, and we have some new webinars that are coming up in the near future, and I hope to see you then.